Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi and I are excited today because we're on the show together. We're usually not in New York at the same time, but I happen to be there from California, and so we're doing our show together. And Heidi and I are very passionate about the show we're going to be talking about, because one of the things it is about taking care of yourself and doing yoga.
Absolutely, and healing through yoga. And I know, Mom, after Scott died, yoga was absolutely key in your own life.
Right. I've been doing yoga for 40 years. Yeah.
And I love it. It is really important in my life too. And you introduced me to it. And it is a big, huge part of my life as well. And we are going to talk to an expert today who's going to tell us more about how you can use yoga to help yourself after a loss. Mm-hmm. And we have with us Hope Zvara, and I love her name.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
She owns the Copper Tree Yoga Studio in Wisconsin. She is a yoga instructor and a motivational speaker. And she lost her first child, Faith, who died in her arms and was like a little over 2 pounds. She has changed thousands of lives over the past 15 years by sharing her journey of loss and recovery. Welcome to the show, Hope.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am just really honored to be on the show with both of you today. This is awesome.
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. I know I was reading some things about you that when you were 17, you were introduced to yoga. You had some eating problems. And
yeah.
So you began the yoga experience.
Yeah, I always tell people that I didn't find yoga, yoga found me. Mm-hmm. And I was knee deep in an eating disorder and had kind of done all traditional modalities without very much success. And I think the biggest problem was because I, one, didn't think I had a problem. And two, I had spent most of my life rejecting myself and protecting myself. That's why those modalities didn't work. And at the suggestion of a coworker, she looked at me one day and was like, "You look like someone that should do yoga." And something in me flipped that day, and I just thought, yoga. I don't think I ever heard that word prior to that. And I went home and I was just like, I think I want to do this. And my Wednesday night yoga class became my weekly ritual of second chances.
Talk to us about how you have used this in your life.
Yeah, well, I had just newly been in recovery, and I had just opened my yoga studio about 8 months prior. My husband and I just got married, and I had been using my yoga to aid in my recovery. And when we found out that my daughter had severe birth abnormalities, and I was 29 weeks pregnant, and this was at the exact moment, the exact day that I had just come to terms with being okay with being pregnant, because I didn't think I was going to be able to be pregnant. I wasn't okay with wanting to be a new mom when I was just married and I had just gone through recovery. And then I find out that my daughter is not going to make it. And it was in those moments that I kind of found myself going, okay, this is the cards that I'm dealt. And when we had our daughter, May 23rd, 2007, I still remember that feeling of holding my daughter in my arms and knowing that this is the first time that I'm going to meet her and the time I'm also going to say goodbye.
Wow, that's heavy. That's a lot.
So for people out there that have been with loved ones and watched them pass and watched them go, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just this deep, heartfelt experience that can't really be explained.
Well, it's not like the best day of your life and the worst day of your life.
Exactly. And so I always tell people when I say, I wish your baby health and well-being, I truly mean it. I truly mean it because I know what it's like. And when we left the hospital that night, and I went home and did, cried my eyes out, and that empty feeling. A few weeks went by, and I got up one morning, and I can still remember this. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said to myself, "Okay, God, okay, universe, there has to be good in all things. Please show me the reason why this happened. Please show me the good, because she's not alive and I am." Mm-hmm. And I asked myself that every single day, and I started going to the yoga mat, and what I found myself gravitating towards is not the fast power yoga, millions of push-ups, is I started to find myself gravitating towards yin yoga, towards restorative yoga, towards these opportunities on the mat that I had to sit and feel in my body. Because if you know anything about addiction, we run from our feelings. That's the whole point. Binge and purge, anorexia, bulimia, so I don't have to feel. And I didn't want to repeat that cycle again. And so I found myself in these postures, kind of re-feeling the grief that I had felt that day and continued to feel. But something so powerful happened. I recognized in those yoga poses, in those moments, that it wasn't going to break me. That I could survive this, that feeling in my body, like, okay, I feel this deep feeling, but I can get through this, just like this feeling of my hips stretching.
That's powerful for a bereaved mom to feel that way, to feel like, okay, I can go there, but it's not going to destroy me.
And I can be with those feelings completely quiet.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing yoga has taught me is that, and I try to tell my students, is time never stops. There are a lot of things that we can't control, but one thing I would always try to remind myself is that time never stops. So the tight feeling in my hips or the stretching in my back, that will eventually fade. And that will eventually change. And what the correlation I started to realize in my yoga practice after losing my daughter was, these feelings may never go away, but they will change over time. Just like my body in the yoga poses. I may never be able to get my foot where I want it to be or my torso where I want it to be, but it changes over time. And my relationship with those feelings change over time. And that was some of the power of yoga. And so after I lost my daughter, all of the people around me, my family, my friends, my students, were kind of waiting for me to relapse. They're like, oh gosh, this is going to be a trigger. And I kind of did the exact opposite. I took this absolutely horrible tragedy that I would never wish on a single person ever in my life, and I found good in it. And I started to use it as this amazing gift to help other people realize that no matter how hard it gets, you should never lose hope, because you're here for a reason. My daughter, I truly believe with all of my heart and soul, that 20 minutes that she lived in my arms, that I held her, that was her purpose. Her purpose was to be on this earth and with my husband and I, to help me and show me that I should live so that I can continue to help others. And
how perfect that her name is Faith, because she gave you faith to live your best life. And like you said, to realize that you were going to have hope and a great life.
Exactly. And yoga and meditation do such a great thing for us in that they slow us down and get us quiet. Because what happens in our mind? We start feeling something and it's that anxiety and that feeling. And then we look for other people that validate that, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And yoga says, okay, let's just slow down for a second. And let's just kind of actually feel out what's really going on so that you can move forward. Said nobody ever, well, that was a waste of time leaving a yoga class.
Right.
So
one thing that I think is very interesting about yoga is that tight places become loose, and maybe loose places become tight. And around, the body is fascinating when you give it some attention and time. On the mat. But what I am thinking about now, when I'm seeing people that are watching this who have never done yoga, they say, well, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. Talk about that.
Well, and one thing I always tell students is that's the exact same reason why you should come to yoga. That's like saying to life, I'm not very flexible and willing to bend in life, so then you never get out of bed. And yoga is really a mirror for our everyday life. So when I teach students, I teach them what I've learned on the mat myself. And our opportunity to be in our bodies, if our body is in fact the soul's last attempt to get us to listen, and you never get quiet enough to hear, don't worry about the physical, okay? Don't worry about, if you can hold a plank for a minute or if you can do a down dog or whatever it is, but come to that place where you can get quiet and de-stress and decompress and feel so that you can be a better you in your life. That's how I approach yoga. And what you'll find is those poses that you feel like, oh, I can't do that, it becomes the what can I do? What can I experience? What can I feel so that I can be a better version of myself off the mat? The asana is 1%. 1%. That's it.
What's the difference between meditation and yoga?
We're
talking about quiet. What is the difference?
Yeah, so in yoga, we have what's called the 8 limbs of yoga. And if you look at the traditional 8 limbs of yoga, we practice asana so that we can sit for meditation. it's kind of that I need something to quiet my mind so that I can actually have a quiet mind. So the idea of asana is that we practice and we move and we bend our body and we breathe and all this stuff is filtering through our head. And we kind of almost get to that point of, let's say, exhaustion or all this stuff I've been carrying all day is gone. But when I sit, I can actually sit and be quiet, or at least quieter, and hear and let those thoughts go and kind of be still with myself. And in today's world where it's just constantly busy, it's no wonder that mental health is a huge concern. And for people that have lost loved ones, if you never give yourself an opportunity to feel or an opportunity to get those feelings out, how will you be able to ever sit and be quiet and be like, okay, you know what? I'm really feeling sad today and I'm really feeling lonely, and that's okay. That's okay, versus I hate this feeling and I want to get rid of this feeling. And then we punish or we neglect or we do things that are not positive. Yoga, the asana, the poses try to like push all that away so that we can be okay with who we are today.
Also, I've noticed if we repress our feelings and don't allow ourselves to go there, yoga will open us up. And you'll be like getting teary-eyed and go, wait a minute, where did this come from?
Yes. It's kind of that go deep and pull out. And that's what also makes yoga so different than, let's say, aerobics or step or whatever, because it's that mind-body intersecting of the consciousness, the quietness, the breathing, and the movement, which our culture desperately needs, is that movement component as well.
So what are your recommendations on how I get started? I know you've got a great website. Talk about your website and what people can do.
And you've also got some videos that people can follow.
Yes.
Which I love.
Absolutely. So through my own process, through recovery and grief and loss, I started to notice a common thread with how I was teaching yoga. And I started to realize that it kind of revolved around three things: breath, body, and belief. And so part of my practice and teaching is teaching people how to breathe again. Most people only breathe with about 18% of their lung capacity, which is what I call clavicle breathing. So if you've lost someone and you're up here constantly, it's no wonder you feel like you can't move forward. Mm-hmm. And so really helping re-educate people on how to breathe just normally in everyday life. The second is asana, or movement, or being in the body. And it's not scary poses, a simple forward bend, chair yoga, for anybody. I mean, it's really anything to help you live in your body and feel in your body and have awareness again. And that second is the belief, is the mindset. What's up here? If you believe that you'll never get better, that you'll never move on after loss, guess what? You're never going to move on.
Yeah.
But if you at least have this little glimmering hope, that's what my daughter did for me. Hope, I am not here, but you are. There is a reason. Please seek that reason out. I had this little glimmer of hope that I need to keep moving on. I believed that. And now I'm living that. And so those are really what I revolve around teaching. So on my website, you can practice with me. I have an online yoga studio. But one of my favorite things is I created free partnership programs, or I should say partnership programs, but 3 programs that kind of work together. And one of them is called Clearing Mental Clutter. And I created this program because I started to realize the patterning of how I was working with students live. And so in this program, I take you through meditation, how to meditate, an easy 5-minute meditation you can download, easy, simple yoga practices that have affirmations for you to focus on opening up and letting go, and then journaling pages, kind of questions that I was asking myself and found myself then posing to my students in my practices, all written out for you that to do some daily insight. So it's kind of a nice comprised program, and that's available on my website as well.
Fabulous. How do we find your website?
HopeZvara.com. Pretty easy.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on this show today and for your enthusiasm and for your help. And I know you've given millions of people.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hope. And I want to thank Faith also, because she is definitely your guiding light.
Thank you. And thank you, ladies, for everything that you do, because it's without people like you that voices aren't heard and people aren't inspired. So thank you.
Have you got one last closing thing that you'd like to give people who've had a loss?
I just want you to remember that you should never lose hope, that if you're here on this earth, there's purpose for you, and to keep living because your loved one isn't, but you still are. And to always remember that.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for watching this video today. And we want to remind you that you'll hope we we'll tell everyone about opentohope.com and let them know all the resources that we have there. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.